Welcome to Divorce and Relationships Decoded, the show that takes the guesswork out of love, loss, and everything in between. Hosted by me, Jennifer Perri, a CDC-certified divorce and empowerment coach, and Dr. Deborah Wilder, a divorce and relationship expert. This is the place where real conversations meet expert advice. So get ready to decode divorce and relationships like never before. Divorce and Relationships Decoded starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. I am one of your hosts, Jennifer Perri. I'm a CDC-certified divorce and empowerment coach, and I am joined by my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Deborah Wilder, who is a divorce and relationship specialist, but she is also a certified narcissistic abuse treatment clinician.
Yeah. Yay.
Yes. I think the past 3 episodes, I've totally botched that. I always forget what the T stands for. But how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing fine. Very well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Today, we're going to talk about something that I know both of us have run into with clients that we help. And that is, what if you are separated in the process of divorce, but you're still, for whatever reason, whether it's financially or legally, you're still forced to share the same space, whether that's an apartment, mobile home, house, whatever it is. And how can you manage to make it work? And we're going to talk about your children and independence in that space and communication. I'm going to throw it over to you first. Is this an area that you see often?
Yes, quite often. And this is not an easy time for a couple, obviously. And sometimes it is easier. Probably most of the time it's easier when there is a physical separation. But sometimes, as you were saying before, you can't, for whatever reasons, physically separate out of the household. Sometimes it's a matter of both parties want to stay in the home and neither one is willing to leave. Sometimes finances will preclude someone from leaving at that time. And sometimes there's just no other way. It can be very tough. It can be tough without children too. I think today it might be best to focus on what do you do when you have children there, because that adds a whole different element. And I've worked with mostly women, but again, men as well, but mostly the women I work with. Sometimes there's a parenting plan that the parents will put together themselves, or as they're going through this process, is a temporary parenting plan, even while they're living in the same home. And so I always think, and when I work with couples who are going through divorce, who are still living together, we establish a set of expectations. I think expectations across the board with any situation can make any situation better. So we can set up standards, if you want to call it standards, you can call it expectations, rules, house rules, whatever it is. But these are the things that will hopefully help make the household run a little more smoothly with less conflict. Again, especially when you have children. And maybe something we could talk about a little bit later in this episode is when you're living with someone, when you're married to someone who is an emotional abuser or a narcissist or has someone with narcissistic traits, that can be very difficult, especially going through divorce, because oftentimes there's sabotage. You may have a spouse that walks around with your camera or his camera or her camera, videotaping any interaction, especially the ones, if you have a spouse that triggers, and then that's when the triggering isn't caught on video, but the after effects are. So you might look like you're going crazy or you're really unstable. And people will put cameras in their homes when both. So that's more the extreme. But let's say you're a couple and you're going through a divorce and you have little kids. Do you start to? Sometimes it's easier for the kids, even before they may know what's going on, to start with one parent spending time with the kids by him or herself, and then the other parent maybe start getting them used to having time alone with either parent. Sometimes it's ordered by the judge. This is a temporary parenting plan, and so you're just living and the other parent tries to stay out of the way, which is awkward and weird. And it's weird for the kids. I've worked with folks whose spouses have been ordered to move into the basement. Who gets the master bedroom? If you can't decide, someone's got to make a decision. And then it's all sorts of stress. It can be when that happens. And just the emotional and psychological stress when that happens. And I'll share that when I was going through my divorce, my husband at the time moved into our basement, but he was still around the house and stuff like that, and the kitchen and everything like that. And it wasn't an abusive relationship. I'm not saying that, but just the emotional stress of having this person still in the home it was a lot. And again, it wasn't an abusive home. So I can only imagine. And I work with so many women who we work through that. But just the emotional, mental, it's just different. So when this person moves out, I remember when my ex-husband moved out, it was such a relief. It just to have now privacy, have my house to myself with the kids when he had his place, when he saw the kids. So it's a heavy load when you're going through this very difficult time, probably the most difficult time you'll ever go through, except for there are other times, but this is certainly one of them. But to live in the same home, even when you get along, is tough. But when you don't get along, so I'm a big advocate of setting up expectations. Who do you, and also too, let's say the kids don't know, or they do know, and do you eat together as a family anymore? What kind of messages are you sending? If let's say the one parent is downstairs and the other parent is upstairs, but it's the upstairs parent's parenting time, but the kids want to go see the other parent downstairs. So it can be very complicated, very emotional, very mentally and emotionally draining. And certainly if you are in an abusive relationship, it's not uncommon for the abuse to get worse as you're going through this. And it's difficult but again, imperative to try to keep the conflict away from the kids. Because boy, if you're just stuck in the home, not that you can't go out, but the kids, they feel it, they see it, they know it. It's in the air much of the time. They can sense. So it can be a very delicate situation. But when you have kids, this is really your biggest cue to be your best self when you're in front of them. And if you need to go behind closed doors and cry and scream in your pillow or punch the pillow or whatever, you do that in private as much as you can. But it can be a dangerous situation too, because that also, if you're, again, with an abusive partner, that gives them all sorts of opportunities to try to drum up negative stuff about your parenting, what you're feeding the kids, how you're talking to the kids on their phones or in front of electronics 3 hours a day on your parenting time. Anyway, so it can be a tough situation all around, but it is, a lot of people are in that. I don't know if it's the majority. I would imagine the majority of people, once they decide they're going through divorce, that someone doesn't move out just right away. So those people, I think, have to deal with this on some level. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think, again, it's the beginning of, is it a healthy breakup? Is it a decision, hey, we've come together as adults and realized we've grown apart, we aren't who we were anymore, versus you have one person who has said, I don't want to be with you anymore, and then the other person's going to stay in the house to make their life difficult. I have clients who just started the process when COVID hit. And then they were not only stuck in the same home, couldn't leave, couldn't go out to work, courts were closed. There was one couple out of all of them that worked it out. Like they worked it out and chose to stay together. But for the other ones, it was awful. Even though it was a situation that none of us expected and we were all experiencing it at the same time, it was still really bad. The scenario was really bad. And for me, January, February are my busiest time of year. January has always been referred to as divorce month. It's the month after the holidays. And I have clients who have stayed together through getting the kids back in school, making sure the school year started. And then the next thing you know, come the holidays and the kids want to go trick-or-treating. And then you've got family coming into town for Thanksgiving and then Christmas and all that. And then New Year's hits. And they've spent 4 or 5 months with somebody that they really didn't want to be with anymore. And it was just trying to pick the right time of letting everybody know, like, hey, we're not going to be together anymore. So I think a lot of it has to do with certainly what is causing it. If you can be mature in all of it, which I'm sure there was times through when I've experienced divorce, I wasn't mature. I think we all have a tendency to be human in the midst of
plenty of time
flying around. Yeah. But I think if you're in a household that has children, this is your dress rehearsal for what it's going to look like outside of this home. I do have a couple of couples right now who are living together because financially they can't go out and get their own places, and they've made it work. And the kids are aware of what's going on. One couple's children are smaller. And I think that it's been woven in to be something that's very natural. Dad's up in the morning before he goes to work, gets the kids fed, gets them on the bus to school. Mom's there to pick them up. So there are ways, like you said, there are ways that you can have a co-parenting plan in-house, even if you didn't have one before. This is your chance to show up. And that leads into how you communicate with one another and be respectful of each other's individual space. You're going to eventually not be together any longer, creating a sense of autonomy and independence. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? And I don't know that I would be able to stay in that scenario, especially in the first marriage that I had. There's no way I couldn't wait to get out of that whole situation. If you have a relationship with someone and you have children, try to sort it out for them. Keep in mind the kids, they're going to pick up on the tension. They're going to pick up on the stress. They're going to pick up on things that are going around. They're going to pick up on the change of the routine. And if your children are old enough to explain it and have that conversation with them about what's going on, try to do it together so they understand that things are going to be different. It doesn't mean that we love you any less. It's just the way that it's going to be. It's communication and trying to be respectful. And your children have no choice in this. If you're married to someone, to your point, who is pushing your buttons and who is there and trying to take control and keep control over the household, you may have this game of, sure, we'll do this parenting plan together. We'll make this work. It doesn't stay like that. I shared with you before we came on, I have a client that her ex was not leaving under any circumstances. He was not leaving that house. And even though that they had agreed that they would not be in the same space at the same time, that's not anything that he followed at all. I think in that case, making sure that you know what your exit plan is as far as emergency, if you don't feel safe, obviously making sure you reach out to the police, but also letting people know that there's something going on and having a go bag at work or a go bag in your car. I know I had a go bag in my car and I had something that I had left at a friend's house. Should I ever need to leave immediately? Please just keep that in mind because it can be a very dangerous situation. What are some strategies that you share with your clients to help them get through it?
Let's start with the healthy couples. The healthy folks, excuse me, can make a list of and an agreement of who's going to do what and when. If let's just say there is who's going to cook for the kids? Are you going to sit as a family? Or if not, when it's one parent's turn, let's say turn with the kids, if you want to start taking turn, dividing household responsibilities would be a good thing. And figuring out, again, sometimes it's good practice for when you actually do separate physically and there's a real parenting plan in place. So if you can work together with making sure that everything that the kids need, everything is taken care of. And again, who's going to do what, when, and how? If one person was always responsible for cleaning the kitchen or the bathrooms or whatever, that person might not clean the other person's bathroom space now or do their laundry. So all these things, and it might seem like nitpicking different things, but it really makes a difference if you want to have a smoother run household while you're going through divorce, as smooth as it can be, is really try to figure out who's going to do what and when and how, and especially when it comes to the kids. So if you can agree to that's going to be a huge win for everybody. I would say probably the majority of the time you can still have healthy parents, but the conflict is so bad that it's really hard to coordinate and somebody's going to slip up somewhere. And there are also plenty of houses that don't have separate spaces. So figuring out who keeps, let's say, the master bedroom, and sometimes kids have to be displaced so the other parent can have a bedroom, or sometimes the other parent moves into a bedroom with a child or ends up sleeping on the couch. So it really is disruptive in many ways. But if you're fortunate enough to have an extra living space or an extra bedroom, whether it's a guest room or something like that, that the other parent can, and sometimes you have to end up sharing the bathroom with the kids. I've been working with someone who's going through a divorce and they are living in the same home, and he is just a real piece of work. He'll take every opportunity to smear her. She has the master bedroom. He's in a guest room. but I guess their common bathroom, let's say in the main area that guests use or things like, he uses that, but he leaves it a mess. He just doesn't clean up after himself. And she was cleaning it because my kids' friends come over and people see it. And at some point I think she's pulled back from that. And he knows that. So I think she's pulled back from that. And so sometimes you have to choose, do I not do something for this person I'm getting a divorce from, who's a real piece of work with me, in order to present something better to the kids? Or do I say, I'm not doing that anymore? That's a tough call, because what are you showing your kids? And it can be interpreted in different ways. You're showing strength that you're not letting this person manipulate you, but are you going to be a good sport about it? That's a choice sometimes. So really figuring out who's going to do what is this going to look like? What ultimately, as we've talked about many times, whatever is best for the kids is what you're supposed to do. If both parents are healthy enough, hopefully they will do it as best they can. As you said before, there were plenty of times during my divorce when I was grateful that there were no cameras around, because the things I would say, not necessarily to the kids, but in front of the kids. I spoke about cursing. I didn't usually curse that much in front of the kids before, but once going through, some other choice words came out then. But frustration is hard. It's very hard and the stress is overwhelming. It's easy to again, feel almost like this oppressive energy when you're both in the home and hopefully you're trying to do what's best for the kids as well as what's best for each of you. But when one partner really doesn't have that level of care toward the children and is toxic, then that leaves the other parent to try to make up for it sometimes and try to keep the kids as healthy as possible. So setting up rules, even minute little things, just expectations. The best thing you can do for the kids and for yourself is to set up those expectations. What do you think?
No, I agree completely. I try to get the clients that I work with to always put their kids first. Always. And it sounds almost crazy. You have to remind people to do that. But I think divorce is the time more than ever that in some cases, your kids are going to be the last thing you think about, because you're so angry and you're so frustrated and overwhelmed by the process itself, or you're so angry at the person that your kids are an afterthought. And that's sad. But I was in that space, right? I was in that space where I was so overwhelmed by everything that was going on that I knew my children were there, but I was just trying to make sense of what was next. And there were times that I probably didn't have them in focus as much as I needed to, because I was just trying to get to the next space, land, and find a place where I could just land on both feet. I want to remind everybody too that we can only focus on what we can control. Whether you are married to a healthy person or maybe a not so healthy person, we can only control ourselves. If you can just stay focused on the environment you're trying to create for your children, focus on what you can control, don't worry about what you can't. And if things get dangerous, that's when you get other people involved. That's where you get police involved. You make sure that your attorneys, whether it's a healthy or unhealthy relationship or situation, let them know what's going on. If you've retained counsel, let people around you know what's going on so that they come into your home, that they're respectful even of the things that you have in place. I think that's so important. But more than anything, if you take away, anything I've said here today is just focus on what you can control.
Right. I agree. And sometimes we even lose control of ourselves, but hopefully we can get ourselves back in check and again, do what we can. But if you're in a vulnerable position, just keep yourself safe, keep your children as shielded as possible. But I agree that we can only control and manage ourselves, and hopefully we'll show up for our kids as best we can and get through this. But it is a huge challenge. It really is.
If you're listening to this and you feel stuck because you find yourself in this situation and you don't know where to find support and you don't know how to make it work, please reach out to us. If you just look below, you'll see how to get a hold of us. You obviously know where to find us on YouTube. We have made it very clear how to take the conversation beyond this episode. So I don't want you to feel disheartened. I don't want you to feel like you're going through it alone. That's the main reason I do this, and I know you do it too, is we don't want anybody to feel like they're stuck in a situation where they can't find help and they feel like they have to go at it by themselves.
Yeah.
We're here to help you, to be there for you. If you find yourself in this situation and you have questions or you want to talk further, send us an email at questions@drdecoded.com. Dr. Wilder and I will reach out to you. We will let you know how we can support you, and we will definitely find you the help that you need as you're navigating this. But as we wrap up today, is there anything else that you would like to leave anyone with?
You will get through it. There is an end point, which is also a beginning point for the next chapter, but you will get through this, however difficult it is. You may be in the worst part of the tunnel right now, but you will get through it. You will get through it.
And we're here to help in the way that we possibly can. So thank you again for another wonderful conversation and for your insight. And for those of you who are watching, we are thankful for you. This is, I believe, our 35th episode, which is awesome. We're excited that we get a chance to come into your space once or twice a week, depending upon when they post. But we're just thankful that you're here and grateful that we can provide a level of comfort and direction and answer questions along the way. So thank you, my friend. As always, another great conversation.
You love
and
it.
And to everybody who's watching, please know that we're here for you and we'll be back again next week. Bye, everyone.
That's a wrap for this episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and empowering. If this conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember, healing, growth, and transformation happens one conversation at a time. If you have a question, a story, or a topic you'd love for us to explore, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note at questions@drdecoded.com. Your thoughts and experiences are always welcome here. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another insightful episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. Until then, take care and keep moving forward.